Restaurant Unstoppable. Inspire, empower, and transform the industry. And with excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, the executive chef and founder of the Greenleaf culture in Unsum. Did I say it correctly?
That's right. You nailed
Beautiful. Chef Chris Viaud. Chef, are you feeling unstoppable
Super
today?
unstoppable, man. Today's a new day.
Yes, I cannot wait to get into your story, but let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
You know, I always like to say, live life, work, eat, and play like there's no tomorrow.
Live life, work, eat, and play like there's no tomorrow.
That's right.
Why is that your quote? Why'd you go with that one?
You know, I often exclaim to the staff and everything, like I go by that can't stop, won't stop mentality and everything, and I'm always on the grind. But I do kind of pull back and know that there's a time to work, there's a dedicated time to play and experience life on itself.
Yeah, and I don't know if I told you this, but just before walking in here, I was on the phone with Keith Sarrison.
Were you?
I was like, Keith, I'm going into my interview with Chris. I was like, what do you got for me?
Are you trying to dig the dirt?
Yeah, and he's like, he is the hardest working dude out there. He's one thing he said about you, and he's just starting to like grasp that work-life balance, and that's what I'm hearing from that quote. Is that
Definitely.
safe to say?
It really is. It really is.
Awesome. So I can't wait to pull back the layers on that when we get to like real time where we are today. But where does it make sense to start sharing your story?
Let's dive back, and I'm probably going to jump around a little bit from my little bit of my past, but the real introduction for me to cooking and my first food memories, I would say, and this is a memory that I always enjoy sharing, is my mom would have me sit on the ground and grind herbs and spices with a mortar and pestle to help prepare the marinades or the spice blend for dishes that she was making for our family meals.
Okay.
And for some reason,
best tool in the kitchen, by the way.
It really is. It really is. And just now I started bringing it up into this kitchen, and some of the staff even here is starting to play with it. And I think it's something that they haven't used before either.
It's everywhere in the world, too.
It really is. Called different names and different applications and everything.
Sorry
so it's
to
a beautiful thing. No, we're going to go back and forth all the time on this. So, so that's one of my most vivid food memories. And then fast forward to high school and graduating from senior year, my mom was like, okay, what are you going to do with your life? And I was like, I don't know, you tell me, right? So she's like, you really need to figure this out. And I just had that one connection back to that one little food memory, and I think that's what triggered the spark of wanting to pursue a career in the culinary industry. So I applied to a couple different colleges, and one community, one was Johnson & Wales, and of course Johnson & Wales had a free application, so I was like, of course I'm going to apply. I got in, and I told her, I was like, listen, Mom, I guess I'm going to Johnson & Wales.
I think we need to give a nod to your parents, because it's something I picked up after 800 plus interviews, is that immigrant families tend to take the opportunities that are presented in this country so much further than most people. So what were some of the lessons that your parents instilled in you at a young age?
Right. Work as hard as you can.
Yeah.
And make sure that you make time to dedicate for your family.
Yeah. And I mentioned that you were from Haiti, but you were born and raised in the States.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
I was born and raised in Massachusetts.
Okay. So when did your parents get here?
So they both got here at different times. My mom, I think, was 17, and my father was 18 or 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Is there any other lessons to pull from like just the hard work and work ethic that they instilled in you?
Be the best person you can be.
Yeah.
And this is one difficult conversation, and of course it's been happening throughout the past couple of years now, is race and everything, and just being mindful of being present where you are.
I won't lie, man. Like growing up in New Hampshire, I don't know. When did you come to New Hampshire?
When I was 15 and a half.
Yeah. Not the most diverse state.
No, not really.
Great people, not the most diverse state. So I can only imagine what it would have been like. I remember growing up I'm from Exeter.
Okay.
I think I can probably name every African American
That's
person
usually the
on my hand. I can
here.
count them on my hand, right? And it's what does that do though when there's just not a lot of diversity? Why is that something that we really need to address?
Well, that's something that I'm kind of opening up to now more, especially over the past couple of years, is exploring the diverse cultures and really representing our culture, because it is important to share those stories, because without sharing those, then it just gets lost.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, speaking for what it was like to grow up as a white kid in New Hampshire and meeting people from like diverse backgrounds, we only know what we know from TV, right? So like there's just so much that's just wrong with perceptions when it comes to other people's races, and I think it's important to have these conversations, as awkward as they are, right? Because we need to learn more about each other, right?
It's so true.
What are your thoughts as I'm saying that?
Well, without us opening up, like us as the Black community, and sharing our stories, then of course nobody's ever going to learn from it.
Yeah.
And having the opportunity to do that over the past couple of years has been a blessing to be able to open up and have the community around listen.
Yeah.
Especially in areas that aren't typically as diverse as areas that we might have come from, and wanting to come to these areas and know that we are going to be accepted and be treated the same way that all others around are being treated is a huge motivational factor for us, and wanting to be able to open up and share our cultures, share our history, share our past.
Yeah, I mean, is there a story that you can think of that is worth sharing in that right now in this moment to kind of help towards this like global movement?
Sure thing, yeah. I've opened up only recently on my Facebook page after the George Floyd murders and everything, and using my platform to be able to express how I felt, and nobody's really heard that side of me before. And it's just thinking back into like high school and college and thinking of like, it's like minuscule bullying and things like that, but people saying, oh, you're the whitest black person I know. And I'm like, I've struggled for a long time trying to figure out what does that mean? And it goes back to the conversation that you were just saying about the perception of who or what black people should be like, act like, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. And we don't need to stay here all day because that's not why we're here, but I think it's worth bringing to the conversation because the conversation is being had, and it needs to continue to be had until perceptions are corrected. Right. So thank you for going there. And when you got the Johnson and Wales, because that's where you end up going, I don't know if you mentioned it, you went to Johnson and Wales. Were there any professors there that really made an imprint on you as far as transforming the man you are today?
Yes, absolutely. So it was about my sophomore year when I had to make the decision, do I want to continue the next 2 years, or do I just want to get my associates and call it quits? And after that, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go for my bachelor's. So when I got past my sophomore year into my junior year, I had a professor named Chef Joe Melanson, and he was the one that really kind of pushed me to get into the kitchens after working in just like these little mom and pop shops or just like churn and burns and things like that, and just saying you can be and do something better. So I started working with him at it was a country club in Rhode Island, and then from there he was like, all right, we had Barbara Lynch from Boston who came up to one of the events, and he was like, you need to go talk to her. And I was all shy and shit. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can swear on here.
People have said far worse. I've said far worse, so you're fine.
Yeah, I was just all shy, and I didn't want to go up and approach. And I was like, no, I'll let this opportunity pass. And thinking back on that, I was like, you know what? I should have taken that up. But I ended up actually applying to Viaud, and I got the position over there. And if it wasn't for him saying you should go work in Boston, you should go work in a bigger city, which, of course, from Rhode Island, a bigger city is Boston, I would have never kind of had that push behind me, that motivation to seek other. Yeah,
so what is the big lesson to draw from this?
So it's to follow your mentors and take their advice, take their guidance. They know they've been through a lot, you know, and especially in this industry where you're passing on, I want to say, generational knowledge or wealth in the industry, and they can see the shifts in the dynamics that's changing in this industry, and can really help guide and push you to be the best that you can be.
Reflecting back at that time, what was it about you that he saw that made him want to take you under your wing? What was your relationship like? What was that engagement like?
Honestly, I've been struggling with that for the past few years of people seeing more in me than I see in myself. And I think that's part of what I'm trying to open up to and explore of who am I and what is it that these people are seeing in me that I can explore more.
What was he saying to you like early on when he first started, like, you know, clearly investing energy and time in you? What was the reasons he was giving you?
He saw that I was passionate, a hard worker, and I was dedicated to the craft.
And I mean, absolutely what you're saying, like lean into your mentors. And I feel like there's so much pressure on high school kids to go straight from high school to college. And I don't know if I agree with it. You were an exception because in all the interviews I've done, it's always been the guys and gals who like went to school, failed out, or like waited until they're like 22, 23, and they had a passion for food and beverage because they were working in the industry, who always made the most out of that college experience when they went to either Johnson & Wales or CIA or wherever it might be. But they were all in. You know, they're usually using their own money. They had lived a little bit, and they network hard, and they leverage those relationships. And I'm willing to go on record and say the most valuable thing you're gonna get when you pay your whatever it is, $100,000, $75,000.
Thanks for reminding me.
To go to these culinary schools isn't the education. It's the network.
That's 100% true.
It's the network you're paying for because they're going to open doors for you. And just like you said, like how would you have been able to go from high school to Barbara Lynch or Chris Coombs? You know, like that's a big step. I mean,
really is.
you could do it with no experience, maybe not, but like
It might take you longer to get there.
yeah, but like it's the doors that are going to open for you. So if you are listening to this and you are thinking about culinary school, know every professor by first name. Go hang out in their office whenever you can. Like they will change your life if they like you, right?
They will.
Yeah,
no, honestly, just remember that they are people too. You
Yeah.
know, before chefs, they were human beings just like us. You know.
Usually I don't do that much talking, but you struck a nerve with me in there with that one because it's make the most out of those relationships.
That's right.
So he helped you connect with Chris Coombs. Was Chris there at this time? Because you're young, you're only a 30-year-old dude, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yep.
you're still a young guy.
Yep.
So how far back are we going right now?
So this was 2012.
Okay.
Yep.
9 years ago.
Yep.
You're so wet behind the ears out of Johnson and Wales. What was it like working in your first professional kitchen? Oh, this wasn't your first job, was it?
No, not the first professional kitchen,
Yeah.
but first fine dining experience.
Okay. What was it like?
You know what? I just want to touch back on the college experience
Yeah,
first
please,
because
please.
I think it's important for
Yeah,
this aspect. So thinking back into high school and everything, I think part of my motivation for getting through college was I didn't have a good studying past, and I didn't perform well through middle school, high school. It was always a nag for my parents to be on me about doing my schoolwork.
Yeah.
And when I made that jump to say, okay, I'm going into my bachelor's, that's when I was like, all right, I have something to prove. I'm going to finish this degree. And I ended up graduating cum laude.
Yeah.
So just,
That's awesome.
Yeah, you know, and it's important to share those stories because people think, oh, you know, once you fail at middle school, you fail at high school, then you have nothing to prove on.
Yeah.
And you can continue to improve on yourself.
So what was different between your experience in high school and your experience here at Johnson and Wales?
I think it was just I loved cooking.
Yeah.
And being able to focus on that. Yes, there's still that aspect of the academics and learning about the maths, the science, and all of those things. But really, the food was the motivator.
Yeah. What's with the right why you can deal with any how? Is that the expression? But
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, with the right why you can deal with any how, and it's just this mentality of if you're on the right path, if you truly love what you're doing, like you can do anything.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you for getting into that.
Of course.
So I mean, before we actually get into Viaud and Chris Coombs, your first like fine dining restaurant, were there any like transformative moments in restaurants or mentors working before this?
Yeah, so I worked at the country club for I think 2 total summers.
That's
and the second summer that I worked there was a chef named Andy McWilliams, and I got really close with him. He was he was working under Chef Joe Melanson.
Okay.
But him and I worked really close together on the line, and he taught me so much about like developing skills, techniques.
What was the name of this country club one more time?
This was.
Did you mention it before?
No,
I'm
trying to think
guessing
back on it now.
Yeah. Where was it?
This was in Jamestown, Rhode Island.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering if maybe I knew the same country club, but I don't think
I can't even remember the name now.
That's another cool thing too about working at country clubs. Another thing, if you are listening to this and you are working at a country club, become best friends with the people that go to that country
Right.
club. Like,
Yeah.
'cause that's another great opportunity. Those people are usually really well connected, and if they take a
really
liking
are.
to you, like they can change your life
For sure,
too.
for sure.
Do you have any of those types of relationships there, or did you see that happen?
I was still young at the time, so I didn't really dive into the connections of the guests or the club members and everything. But I remember just the chefs who were older enough and experienced and working with them. They definitely dove right into those connections, the networking, and were able to pull massive events from being able to network with those guys.
Yeah. So working at this country club, I think I started asking were there any other mentors or key evolutions. Did I cut you short? I think I might have.
Yeah, I was just touching base on the mentors. Evolutions, I think it was just being able to touch and feel new products. I mean, they were bringing in some really nice things, as country clubs are typically wealthy club members, and they're able to bring in the foofy ingredients. So being able to touch and work with new products really inspired me to want to see what else was out there.
Okay. Did you? I mean, you changed because you got to see all this as a chef. You grew, but what about as like you weren't a leader at this point, but did you learn anything from the leaders in that kitchen about what to do or what not to do?
Absolutely. I learned to respect your whole team. Everyone should share the same values and have that mentality of we're pushing each other up.
Was that something that you witnessed?
Yes.
And how did this? Who was it that did this?
It was the whole chef team. It was Joe Melanson, Andrew McWilliams, and just pushing us all to be the best that we could be. Starting from the dishwashers, the line cooks, the servers, the hostess, we were all shared that same mentality of we're pushing the team forward.
Was this something that echoed daily, or was it obvious that this was the culture? And,
Yes.
And like, give me an example of how they would engage people to meet that standard of constantly growing.
It was just the interactions that we all shared with each other and making sure that we all knew that this is the culture in the kitchen, and we are here to motivate, push, and put the best food out and the best service out that we could.
I love that. Is there things that they did regularly that we can like draw, like things that you copy in your kitchens today that they did to kind of really set that in stone?
I think it's just having respect for one another, and
Yeah.
just learning that from a young age. Coming up in the kitchen is huge, because you hear these horror stories of how other kitchens have been treated, and the staff in the kitchens or the front of the house, or you have that separation between the two, let's call it cultures, within the front of the house and the back of the house, and just trying to break that barrier, break that mold, and introduce one house.
So how do they reinforce it though? Like, how do they really drive home this is what we're about?
Just constantly harping on us and letting us know that this is the culture of the place. You know, there's no separation, there's no clear lines. This is all one team, one house. We share the same vision.
Yeah, probably quote him too often, but like Danny Meyer says in his book, Setting the Table, constant gentle pressure, right? Your job, people are going to shift over time. They're going to shift away from the center line. And it's your job to gently put them back onto center line. Like, this is how we do things here.
Absolutely.
You can't just say it one time. It's got to be a constant
repetitive motion.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome stuff. Okay, so you graduate from Johnson Whale. You head to Boston after taking the advice from your mentor.
Yes.
What was it about Chris Coombs and Viaud that was so appealing to you? Was it the restaurant or the chef that pulled you in?
It was the chef team and the food that they were doing. It was, they were just behind, it seemed like, what was the new age of what the food was coming into the city was, and just seeing all the flavors and things that they were building upon, and the team relations that they have built after taking that first walkthrough of the kitchen.
Yeah.
It was really inspiring to see how they all worked together, how they all communicated, and pushed each other to achieve the same end goal.
Okay, so how did they work together? How did they communicate?
So it's a small kitchen, so working in tight spaces, and just first and foremost communicating on a personal level, and you can tell that there is a camaraderie between them all of, okay, I really want to get to know this person because we are in tight corners and we're working 12, 14 hours days together. So connecting on a personal level, and then having the respect and understanding of, okay, business time, once that service clock hits, we need to shut down that kind of instinct of wanting to kind of deepen that relationship and know that the food is the relations that we're moving forward right now.
Okay, what do you mean by that? The food is the relationship we're moving forward right now.
So food is art, and I've had this recent experience with a artist in Houston of how distracting it can be when people are watching, or when you're producing your art and there's eyes or visuals or music or sounds around. And it's relative to when you're cooking or when you're plating, is you want to have that real intimate connection with the food or the product that you're working with, to be able to know and understand that you can hear the fish as it's sizzling in the pan. It's telling you when it's almost ready to be flipped or anything. You can hear when it's time to baste the steak, and know if your glaçage is breaking in your pan for your vegetables. So it's having that deep connection with the food that you're creating, and understanding the timing of the food that you're putting up yourself, and your chef right next to you also, so that way you can get everything to the plate at the same time.
Yeah, so it sounds like when you say food is the relationship that's pushing us forward, and then you just listed like that respect to the process of cooking, right? But it sounds like what you're saying is that is the linchpin, that is the common thread that we all share. That is the relationship that we're agreeing on, that this is what we're doing and this is what our priority is.
That's right.
Why is that so important? It's an alignment. It's alignment of values.
It really is. In the kitchen, timing is everything, and working and communicating with each other to get that timing correct, so that way all entrees or vegetables or everything's going out on the same time. It's a symphony.
Yeah.
You know, one person starts, one person leads, the next person needs to follow, and it's just like a chain reaction, chain effect.
And I think that's one of the amazing things too of working at a restaurant like Viaud, or I'm going to say it wrong.
Viaud, yes.
Viaud. Is that restaurants like that, or Barbara Lynch, or any major like culinary like reputation, it attracts people who are that have those same values. We're here to learn. We're here to like do the best we can do.
That's right.
What did that do for you? Having other people who had that same level of passion and desire to do good. How did that serve you?
You know, it really helps me personally to push myself forward. I mean, there's so much turnaround, as you know, that's coming in and out of the industry, especially back then. And in fine dining, it's really like you have to want it to be able to work in a restaurant environment like that, where you're constantly pushing yourself to your most extended boundaries and everything. And seeing the strengths, the talents, the dedication, the passion of others around, that helps motivate me to want to have that same kind of push.
Yeah.
And figure how I can push my own personal boundaries without overextending myself.
You're the average of the people you surround yourself with.
That's right.
I heard this example of like somebody who was going for a run. It was recently on the show, and he was running pretty normally, like a decent, like maybe like an 8-minute mile or something like that. And then they signed up for this marathon, and they accidentally signed up for like the advanced group.
Oh.
And he did like the best mile of his life. It was like he shaved like a minute and a half off his time because he was surrounded by people who were running at a different pace, and you don't even realize it, but like you just keep up with the pack.
It's so true.
Right? And you will transform. Who were you going into that experience, and who were you coming out of that experience? How did you transform?
I was a nimble, green little line cook that thought I knew a lot about food, and I realized coming out of there that there's a whole nother world of food to learn, explore, grow from, and continue to just keep on that hunt for learning about other cultures, other cuisines, other cooking techniques and styles.
Yeah. If you're a curious person, you're in the right industry.
Right. 100%.
There is no end.
It's nonstop learning.
Yeah, and that's awesome if you like that. What about Chris Coombs? Because he was, the name behind this brand, the chef behind this brand. What was he like as a leader?
He was an exceptional leader for sure. I mean, I got in right at the moment where he was starting to open up and really build his brand. So I was able to work hand in hand with him and work on the line with him, and he taught me a lot about butchery and everything. And he really enforced the aspect of timing and understanding how you can kind of manipulate your schedule to work in these extra projects so that way you can learn more. He would constantly pull me off the line and say, okay, I want to teach you this thing right now. It's like, you have to have time. It's like, this is the chef owner that's willing to take his time to teach you something. So how can you manipulate your schedule to be able to work within theirs?
Yeah, I love that. And this is the first time I think we've ever talked about this, is blocking time in the day for learning. So would you have this conversation like in the beginning of the day, like we're going to block time around in between these two things? Or is it just like, we have a moment right now, we should take advantage of this moment?
For the most part, it was just like, I'm going to do this right now. You're joining me, or you're going to miss out on this opportunity. Yeah. So in my head, it's like, okay, what can I pass up on, or what am I going to force myself to later, so that way I can take this time to learn how to butcher this rack of lamb and things like that.
Yeah, but again, just establishing that culture that we're always here to learn. We're always looking to grow. I love that. Were there any other key mentors, people who inspired you during this time that are worth bringing to the conversation?
Adrienne Wright was the CDC chef de cuisine at the restaurant, and I started there when she was just a sous chef. So to see her growth in the company, see her growth as a chef, it was truly inspiring. And then also Stephanie Bouy, who is absolutely one of my best friends, and she has taught me so much about just how you can twist and use your cultural references in cooking. Her heritage is Vietnamese. So she was also always pushing the bounds of how she can incorporate some of her Vietnamese cooking styles or techniques into the French cooking. Okay.
Going back to Adrienne, you said she grew so much during this time. What did you learn about her growth?
It's a nonstop boundary. I mean, the sky's the limit when it comes to growing and learning, and she was the epitome of that. I mean, she was the sous over there, and I saw her become the chef de cuisine, which going through that evolution in a fine dining restaurant is massive. Yeah. So to be able to be there standing on the line where she was just standing right next to me cooking, and then now all of a sudden I'm seeing how she's taking on more tasks, taking on more responsibilities, learning more about how the company is run as opposed to just how to create food. That is something that I still carry near and dear with me, and she is still somebody that I connect with and constantly have conversations of learning, growing, empowering, and figuring out what the next steps are.
Beautiful. And I don't really have a follow-up on Stephanie, but I know that right now your pop-up is a lot to do with your roots, right? Your Haitian roots, and you're cooking a lot from those roots. Is that inspired by Stephanie? I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead, right? But is that, I mean, do you think she helped maybe subconsciously inspire that?
I would say yes. Throughout my cooking career, there has been chefs who dig deep into their culture and their food is influenced by it. Yeah. And I want to say that it didn't have a direct correlation with me wanting to start my brand Ensemble. That was more so just, I'm now at the point where I need to dig deeper and figure out who I am as a chef. Yeah. Like I know Greenleaf has its own identity. It does farm to table American cuisine. Culture is a sandwich shop, bakery, supporting the local community. But me as a chef, who am I? And it wasn't until some recent experiences that I did have of saying, you know what, I grew up eating Haitian food. I've done these pop-up dinners where I do a modern interpretation of what Haitian cuisine is, but I don't really know the true history or the techniques or the ingredients that are involved with Haitian food. So I wanted to dig deep into that and then also have the opportunity to share that experience with my siblings. So I reached out to them and I said, listen, guys, like, we're getting older. Our parents are getting older, and we are first-gen Americans. So if we don't take on these tasks, these responsibilities, then our traditions of our culture, they're going to get lost.
Yeah, that's
and
smart.
I have a 1.5-year-old, so it's like I want to be able to pass this down to her, and hopefully she continues that. You know?
That's great foresight. And I want to pull back this conversation of going deeper in this journey of who am I that you're on right now. I think, but we'll save that for like the way at the end.
Yeah.
So how long were you with Viaud?
Viaud, I was there for, let's see,
2012?
2.5 years. And then I left for a little and then came back for another 6-7 months.
Okay. So why did you leave?
I was pursuing other opportunities.
Okay.
Viaud was a great experience for learning about the aspects of fine dining and the attention to detail when it comes to technique, creativity, and working with these amazing ingredients. But I wanted the opportunity to learn more of business relations and get more of that corporate background.
Okay.
So I did take a step into the corporate. And
where'd you work?
That was Paparazzi Metro in Burlington.
Okay.
So that was one of my first restaurant opening experiences. I was a part of the opening team, and I just caught the tail end of like the final build out of it when we were starting to bring on the kitchen staff.
So what's at this point, you said this is a corporate experience. What was Paparazzi, or what is Paparazzi Metro at this point?
Paparazzi Metro is a comforting Italian pasta pizza shop.
Okay. And how many locations did they have?
Oh, they had, I think, 11 or 12 at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really smart. I think it's one thing to work at a kitchen like Viaud and you're going to learn so much about how to cook and how to really push the envelope with creativity, and how to use the French standards of cooking. Like your technique is going to go through the roof, right? But at the same time, getting the experience and having that intuition to know that like this is one vertical of cooking, but then there's the other vertical of cooking that's like, well, can we be like, it's really hard to be profitable with that first line of cooking, right? The labor expenses are through the roof. Like, so what was going through your mind? Like, what were the things you wanted to learn with Paparazzi Metro?
Sure.
Like, what were the key things you were hoping to get from that experience, and what did you get?
Yeah, they're definitely polar opposites, man. I mean, pulling from my experiences at Paparazzi Metro taught me how to work with the operational side of things and learning how to do Excel sheets and things like that, and pulling labor reports, cost reports, learn how to process inventory the correct way and input and export into the systems, learning how to hire, fire, deal with difficult employees, because corporations like that, they do have a higher turnaround and they're not as personable in relations with the employees, because it is such a large corporation that they are dealing with multiple hirings, firings, so many locations, transferring of staff from different locations within the group. So you just learn to kind of work with your scheduling and know when and where you're supposed to be at what time, and really build a detailed calendar of events for your day, for your week, for the month, and learn how you can still continue to push and motivate the staff that you have there.
Man, you just dropped a lot on us. I'm taking notes as you're going. So, big thing, you were learning numbers, specifically like how to manage labor costs, just like inventory costs, time blocking, which is the last thing you said, which is huge. How to manage your time, which I think is probably the one thing that people don't teach us in this industry. We learn how to manage food. We learn eventually how to manage numbers, right, with the P&L and all that stuff. But we never really get taught how to manage time.
That's right.
And that's one of those things that we just don't learn in school, right? What did you learn about time management? And then we'll start talking about how they taught you how to deal with people.
Yeah, time management is a fickle thing, because you're in the industry, you come in, you clock in, you have work to do, you need to get your list done, and you
clock
don't really
in,
have
look
time.
at the list.
Yeah, that's
right?
it. And then it's just go.
Yeah.
So taking that extra 5-10 minutes that it does take for you after you clock in to kind of just swallow the list ahead and really organize, okay, this is the task that I need to start with. This is when this is the time that I'm hoping to be done, and this is when I need to be on the next one. This is the 5 minutes that I'm going to take in between to breathe, take a sip of water, and use the restroom, because we all know that it's just like you go, and whenever you have time, you have the time. So,
exactly.
Being able to dedicate those moments for yourself and know that you have a list, a plan in place is massive. It helps you outline your day and be organized and successful throughout your prep.
Yeah. And what do they teach you about hiring, firing people, basically human relations?
HR, Yep. Just that everyone has its own personality, and you have to be able to work within those personalities and understand people, build those connections, and really the interview process is about building those relations before you even learn that you're going to bring them on the team, and figure out if they'd be a good fit and if the fit of the establishment is a good fit for them. Because the last thing you want to do is bring somebody in just because you need somebody, and you want to make sure that you're cultivating the right culture for the establishment where they feel at home and you can provide that home for them.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember the exact words you used, but it was something along the lines of you're just looking to like become their friend before you even decide whether you're going to hire them or not. One of the cool things I've heard recently is this idea of like when you're interviewing somebody, I think it used to be like, whoever was choosing to hire you or not kind of had the leg up, but it's shifted now. Like if you're somebody who's looking to hire somebody, they got a lot of options.
That's right.
You're selling yourself to them.
That's right.
Right. And I think that's one thing we have to keep in mind. Like this person could work anywhere right now. What can we do to make them want to come work for us? You are not so much, they're not selling themselves to you as much as you need to be selling yourself to them.
That's right.
Right. So how were you selling yourself to them?
Just promoting the establishment itself, what we're doing, the food styles that we are about, the community around, what we do to support, and how we can uplift and continue to learn and grow.
Yeah, but I think the first thing you said before I decided to go deeper is you were just taking an interest in them.
Oh yeah, for
right.
Sure.
Like, and if you just take an interest in somebody and truly care about that person, and like you're genuinely curious, like that, I think people just want to be seen.
Yes.
If you can do that, I think that's huge stuff too. Regarding the numbers and like getting into the numbers, was there anything that you learned for like the first time working here that you just never had learned between culinary school and like this prestigious restaurant? What were some of the things as far as the details of the numbers and costing? Can you lean on any of those lessons?
Yeah, it was more so just getting more involved with them. I mean, touching on in culinary school, of course, you've had these short little lessons and everything.
Stuff over here that you have to worry about someday.
That's right.
Until then, cook.
Yep. And then you get into the fine dining, and then you start as a cook, or let's take it me. I started as a cook, and then I'm in the industry, and I'm learning and growing as I can. And of course, with each opportunity, from Viaud, I was a cook. I became one of the sous chefs over there. And yes, through those experiences, you learn more about the numbers, you get more detail oriented, but jumping into the corporate end of things where you have more time to dedicate and you have a much larger staff where you can fully divulge yourself into the numbers and learn how to manipulate your Excel sheets and figure out, okay, if I put this person here, if I shave off 10 minutes here, what does that mean for the final outcome?
Okay.
And just having the time to really push and sit yourself down in front of a computer and really understand okay, this is important. Like these numbers do matter. Because if these numbers aren't here, then the business this is the difference that could make the business fail or succeed.
Yeah, and like if you're not paying attention to the numbers, you don't know if you're doing better or worse, right? And you might have a gut feeling, but if you can back that up with hard numbers, and then you can see if your efforts to correct are actually working, right? Which is another huge thing that's super important. You got to be able to track those numbers.
That's right.
So Paparazzi Metro, how long were you there?
I was there for just over a year.
So we're looking between the 2 years and then the other year, then the 5 months back at Viaud, you're looking at like 3.5 years total. So now the year's 2015 and a half.
Yep.
We're in the summer of 2015.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on in your world? Because I know you came back up to New Hampshire, but why?
Yep. So I left Paparazzi Metro, and that's because I realized real quick that the corporate background wasn't for me.
Okay, why?
It's a different kind of atmosphere, and it's not so much focused on the food. It's focused on it's hard to explain.
All
that
stuff we just talked about.
Exactly. It's focused on the business. And I wanted really to get that opportunity to be equal, you know? So I wanted to be involved with the food. I wanted to be involved with the business, but I couldn't do that at Paparazzi. The Paparazzi was just like, you have to be here. You have to be sitting at the computer.
This is the job we hired you for.
You need to show me the numbers, and that's where you lie, and then manage your cook staff.
Exactly.
You're not on the line cooking. You're not doing this. So I wanted that kind of hybrid, and I ended up finding an opportunity which brought me to Manchester, New Hampshire, and I was part of the opening team of Cabernet. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I've never been there, but I think I have heard of it in the past.
Yeah, so I was the head chef over at Cabernet, and I built that kitchen from ground up, and it was all these things leading into it where it provided me the opportunity to say, okay, I'm comfortable enough with planning, designing a kitchen, leading the vendors, getting in touch with all them to secure all the equipment, the supplies that we are going to need to open, hire staff, and be able to push forward my vision of what I see fit for that brand.
Okay, so this wasn't your vision originally, though. Was it your idea, this restaurant opening, or
no? So yeah, I was working with the restaurant owners, and I was just in charge of the restaurant. The food side.
And this is your first opening ever, too, right?
First full opening, yeah.
Full opening.
Yep, Paparazzi. I was on the tail end of opening the restaurant.
I really want to pull back some layers on, because how many total? Actually, before we really get into this, so there was Cabernet. Am I saying it correctly?
Cabernet.
Cabernet.
Yep.
Thank you. Cabaret is
different story.
Cabernet. So what else did you do before partnering up with Keith Sarrison?
All right. So it was Paparazzi Metro, then Cabernet.
Yeah.
And then after that, that's when I went into partnering with Keith.
Okay. So this is the first restaurant from start to finish that you helped open. And you said you felt comfortable going through all this stuff. How did you get any experience ordering and like setting up vendor relations and stuff like that? Like
through Paparazzi Metro, yes.
Okay, got it. So what are some of the lessons to learn that you learned the hard way when it comes to opening a restaurant? Things to consider, things that caught you off guard that you can help prevent somebody else being caught off guard with?
I think at that moment I was just eager to do something new, and I fell in love with the idea of wanting to be in charge and having the opportunity to set up and do everything my own way, that I lost sight of who who was hiring me. And there was that disconnect of who the owners were versus who I was and where I wanted to be.
Okay. So that's a huge lesson. So you were excited to be able to open this thing. Was it a mismatch in vision?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So what was your vision? What was their vision?
My vision was, I was still pretty much fresh out of, my mindset was coming from a fine dining atmosphere and everything. And I wanted to kind of produce those foods that were coming out of the kitchen in Manchester, New Hampshire, in an area that wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
So I was pushing my vision forward, and that food was, I felt as though I was doing the best that I could do with the team that I have involved, and it just wasn't working for their brand, their concept. And
what about it wasn't working for them? What were they looking for?
I think they got scared because it was their first restaurant opening, and they don't understand that things take time to build, develop, and you need that kind of back end of a namesake of people knowing who you are and the restaurants that you're coming into. And I was still a new name, and they had never owned any restaurants before, and me trying to push my vision forward, and they had, it seemed, what was a different vision after they saw that, of course, the numbers weren't working for them. They wanted to see something different, and they started bringing in new products that I didn't really accept to come into my kitchen. So I was just like, you know what? I think this is where we call it a draw.
Yeah. How long did it take you to get to that point?
Ooh, well, because I was with them for the whole opening, I worked with the company for over a year. When it came time to actually opening the restaurant, I was there for 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
And by month 2, I think that's when I had my first conversation with Keith and said, you know what? I'm being open and honest with you. I don't think things are going to work out over there. And he was just like, listen, I always have a playground for you.
So wait, you were there for a year. By month 2, you knew that there might not. Wow.
Yes.
So you stayed another 10 months.
Yep.
Well, would you have done anything differently, knowing what you know now? Would you have done anything differently during that 1 year?
I think building a deeper connection with those around. And at that time, those around was just the owners.
Yeah.
So really understanding what you're kind of throwing yourself into and taking that time to step back and say, is this what I really want, or is this what they're trying to push on?
Yes. Yeah. I think that those weird, whether it's at a bar someplace or in someone's home, but they're those long, deep, intimate conversations where you're scratching, ideas and visions down on pieces of napkins and just getting aligned.
It's important.
Yeah. Because if you have different visions, you're going to be pulling in 2 different directions.
That's right.
And your team's going to be confused. And you just can't get people pulling in the same direction.
Right.
Do you think you would have left sooner?
I think that's a tough one, thinking back on it. I mean, I wanted so hard, so badly to see the success of the brand,
Yeah.
that I wanted to stick it out. And I think that was kind of like my pitfall, my downfall of me putting so much stress on myself. And I started working like 90, 100-hour weeks for someone else.
Yeah.
And you never want to get to that point where you're stretching yourself so thin, overburdening yourself on somebody else's account. I mean,
you're going to start to resent that other person.
100%.
Did you?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
How did that help?
Well, it was kind of a double-edged sword.
Didn't.
Yeah, it didn't. I started resenting the owners, and I started resenting myself
Yeah.
for putting myself through that and feeling stupid on me working so hard and long for them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I think, it's weird because I think the industry standard is give somebody a year, right? And I think that was good on you. It says a lot about your character.
Right.
That you gave somebody a year. But the big lesson to pull from this is when you're young and hungry and you're ready to make a name for yourself and you see an opportunity where people are willing to put up the money and like give you creative freedom, it's hard to turn away from that.
It's so true.
All you see is like the stuff that you've always wanted.
Yep.
And you're blinded by what's not
Exactly.
the obvious things that aren't going to work out, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for getting into that.
Of course.
When did Keith Sarrison come onto your radar?
So Keith was actually a judge of a little food competition that we did. And it was just like 3 chefs and preparing mystery basket dishes in their own kitchens, or I used a home kitchen because the kitchen that I was working at wasn't built at the time. So it was just a mystery basket of ingredients. We all had the same basket, and the time started, and he always expresses that, the minute I saw Chris walk through, he had his chef coat pressed iron, ready to go. His knives were sharp, and that's how he knew that I was going to win. And he loves sharing that story and everything. And I think that's when we first built that connection, was after that competition where I did win, of course. He was just like, we need to connect. So we connected through social media, and then from there we just set out and started having drinks and just talking about food relations, our culinary past, and how we see the industry is shaping. And this was, again, 2016.
And at this point, was he doing the farmer's dinner?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at what time did the conversation happen where he says, let's come get involved with this?
So this was about June, July of 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or 2017, I want to say, actually.
Where were you at this point in your life? Like, what were your thoughts? What were you thinking? Like, I mean, at this point you had left. I always want to say Cabernet. And I know it's
Cabernet.
So I don't go to Cabernets a lot. I promise you. So what was, like, when you leave, like, what's the mindset you're in? Like, are you saying like what do you want to do? What were you telling yourself you were going to do during this time after leaving?
It was all about a refresh for me. I mean, as soon as I was gone from there, I couldn't sleep. I went on 4 o'clock in the morning runs. I was taking videos, shooting photography, things like that, just to clear my mind. I think food was the last thing I wanted to focus on. Mm-hmm. My wife and I ended up taking a 2-week trip to Europe, where we traveled around the Rhine and the Mosel. And I think that's where my passion for food kind of sparked again. I was like, wow, this is incredible. Mm-hmm. This is what food can be. And it's not this like pretentious, over the edge, like fully plated, composed meals. It's just like comforting. And building that connection with those vendors in the bread shops and the cheese shops, or at the restaurants that we were going to, you really understand their passion for the food behind it. And it helped me realize why I got into the industry in the first place.
What's different with their passion versus what you were used to up to this point?
I think seeing their passion over there, I've never really had those experiences here because I was never willing or wanting to learn and grow from other restaurants around.
Yeah.
I think I had that closed mindset of, this is the food that I do. This is how I want to push my vision forward, that I was closed to seeing there's other great chefs in the area that are doing these things, that are sharing the same vision, the passion, and wanting to teach others around and have that kind of sense of uplifting each other's restaurants, businesses, culinary talents around.
Yeah. So wait, that was what they were doing out there? That was different?
No, well,
that's what that was going on.
That's what I saw, and I was blind to see that it was happening here also.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I might have missed something. So that you saw that this was happening out there. Reinstate that one more time. I just want to make sure I understand.
Sure. Yeah. So just seeing their passion and involvement with each other, with the cuisine, that helped me understand that this is how I want to continue to push myself forward, is by getting myself involved with the community around where I am.
What was different about their attachment to the cuisine that's not happening here?
I think at that time over there, it just felt more emotional, more involved. And they had that sense of, we've been doing this for years. This is where the food history is founded and things like that.
I think there's more of a sense of identity that comes with it.
Yes.
Where in America, there's really no like food identity.
Right.
Maybe the argument of like barbecue, but that's so stupid because we've been doing barbecue for like 10,000 years, right? Like we can't stay clean.
We can't plan that. Yeah. No.
But anyway, but like back there, like their whole regions are known for like a thing,
Right.
and they take a lot of pride in that because it's history, it's tradition, it's culture, right? And I think we are missing that a little bit over here because we don't have that same tie.
That's right.
We don't have that identity. We're just kind of a bunch of like, what's the word, like lost like boys,
right?
But why is it important that how do we get to that same level of connection to the food over here if we don't have that history?
I think it's just embracing and learning and being open to exploration and understanding different culinary talents, traditions, identities. Because over here, we don't have that history or anything, but we're like a melting pot.
Yeah.
You have so many different cultures that are willing to share their food, their stories, and we just need to be willing to listen.
So at this point, you're just learning and creating and looking at the detail, and you're proud of the food you're creating, but you don't have any identity to it. Whereas there's identity over there, and that identity is huge. I think it's closely tied to like self-actualizing, right?
Yes.
Which is what we're all supposed to do.
Right.
But I think when you have that history, it's so much easier.
It is easier
because there's something to be proud of, right? So did it make you kind of want to? So like you recognize this, you see this. How in your mind, what is your strategy to achieve it?
That didn't come to me until years down the road.
Okay.
I mean, from then I was still just like, you know what, I'm out of the kitchen for now, but I want to dive back in. I know.
Yeah, like it lit something inside of you.
It did. It did.
So you come back.
Yep.
What happens?
And then from there, I just started reading, following these chefs on Instagram, in Facebook and everything, and just learning and seeing what they're doing.
Getting inspired.
Yeah, getting inspired.
Okay. When we left off, you were getting inspired. You're looking into other chefs. You were reading. What kind of stuff were you reading? What were you looking at?
I think my favorite book that I always reflect back on is Volt Inc. So it's the Voltaggio brothers.
Yep.
They wrote a book together, and it's just, you can see like the differences of the two of them and their styles, their cooking techniques, and it's relatable. I mean, some of the ingredients are there that they're pretty far off and some things that you might not be able to get your hands on.
Yeah.
But the explanations of how you can manipulate these items, that's what I fell in love with.
Okay. What was going on with you and Keith? Because I know at this point, when did you start working with Keith at the Farmer's Dinner?
Yeah, so that was back in the summer of 2017.
Okay,
and
so at this point you were already working with Keith.
Yeah.
You had left to go on your trip. You're back.
Right.
Because you guys opened Greenleaf together, correct? 50-50 partners?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So it was.
So when did that conversation start to happen?
So originally we were looking up in the Lakes region, and we had a location that we were pretty set on. We did some floor plans for it and everything, and that just fell through. I mean, it was a phenomenal project. The owners of that place were incredible to work with, but the timing was just off. It would have led us into, I think, a 2022 opening. Whoa. And this is 2018 now that we're talking about.
Yeah, you still wouldn't be open.
Yeah, exactly. So that definitely wasn't.
I think that's a blessing in disguise.
It was.
The other thing too, it's very seasonal up there,
yes.
which is tough.
That was kind of like one of the selling points. Like, we can just crush it for a whole season and then take 6 months off. And then
well, I've seen people who actually. I mean, there is a lot of truth to that. I had a past guest, Roger Bodwin, on the show, who I think it wasn't him, but he told me about this. He had a place called Matterhorn up in Sunday River. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but they would go gangbusters from like December to April,
right?
Early April, and then they would take their entire team and then go to, I think, Saco.
Wow.
And they had a couple bars on Saco.
Yep.
So they had the same team in both locations. So they had the ski bums, and then the beach bums.
Yep.
And they would just take this army of people from the beach but it worked.
That's
and,
smart,
and they were in peak markets.
Mm-hmm.
So they were making money hand over fist.
Right.
So that is, we kind of laugh, but like that is
That's a smart move.
Yeah, it's a very valuable approach. So you decided not to do the Lakes region. What was the conversations like that you and Keith are having? Because before we were talking about how important it is to have the same vision, to be aligned. Did you guys ever achieve that?
Yeah, so at that point, when things were falling through over there, it was the conversation just came up, and Keith was like, you know what, we can just continue to dive right into this catering and go full force. And and I was like, catering isn't really the right move for me. And I was like, we might need to split ways at this point, because I don't think that things are going to line the way that we're looking and hoping for right now.
Was this before you opened Greenleaf?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then I was actually in France at the time when Keith gave me a call, and I was like, listen, like, we're on different time zones, blah, blah, blah.
This is long distance.
Yeah, exactly. And he was like, listen, man, I just needed to give you the heads up. Like, there is a space available that I'd love to kind of check out. I was like, all right, I'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll go take a visit. And that was this building that we're sitting in right now.
Greenleaf, in Milford, New Hampshire.
In Milford, New Hampshire. And he said
it's
Milford, New Hampshire.
Space. I love the windows. The light in here, man, is awesome.
So much natural light with the
high
windows
ceilings.
and everything.
These buildings, old mill buildings, make the best restaurants,
Right.
in my opinion. They're beautiful. Sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
Yeah, no worries. So he said it's in Milford, New Hampshire, and I was like, great, where's Milford? That was the start of the conversation. And then as soon as I got back, I think it was either September or October of 2018 where we first took a walkthrough of this space.
Okay, and you opened in 2019, right?
Correct.
What month of 19?
May of 2019.
So not that long after.
Nope.
Only like, what would that be, like 6 months?
6 months, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So take us through what this 6 months looked like.
Okay, so we took a walkthrough of the space, and we fell in love with the history of the building. There was little Easter eggs all over the place of like the previous architect's hand drawings, which his name was Luther Greenleaf. So we named Greenleaf after the original architect from
I think that's
1909.
smart. Whenever you can take the history of a town and instill that into the people identify with it.
100%, right? Yeah, because this was a bank, and a lot of the community around, they come in and they look around and they say, "Wow, I'm in awe," because they used to work in this bank, or their parents used to bank in the bank, you know.
Okay.
It was more so just like paying homage to the area, paying homage to the building, and from there building the vision of what we wanted the space to look like. Starting in November, December of 2018 is when we began the build out, and it led us all the way up to April of 2019 to get everything done, get all the contracts in order, make sure that we had all the licensing ready to go.
Okay.
And then it was just game on from there.
Were there any like things that happened that just were unexpected, that caught you off guard, that you could have caught if you had more experience?
I don't think so, and the reason I say that is because we had a skilled contractor that was working to set everything in play. And I think that's one blessing that we did have, is just knowing that we could put full faith into the GC, the general contractor, and know that he's going to take care of everything for us.
How did you know this general contractor?
It was the landlord who actually had the connection.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's huge. Sometimes I think when we're looking to open anything, build a house, do anything, we're looking at the bottom line always. Yep. We're like, oh, we can save $50,000 if we go with this contractor. Right. Big freaking deal, right? Yep. Like, what's $50,000 when like they miss something that's going to cost you $200,000?
Exactly.
So don't skimp when it comes to build outs.
Right.
Put the money up for people who have reputation. Any other lessons as far as building your first restaurant?
Yes. This goes back to the conversation I was just having.
This is your second restaurant, technically.
Yeah, second,
But what were you doing differently this time around?
So this time it's my money.
Yeah.
We touched base on it earlier, just saying have that opportunity to learn and grow and kind of make those mistakes with somebody else's money, because it is a valuable experience, saying, okay, the sky's the limit when it comes to the budget on some of these things, so I'm just going to get the toys that I want to play.
Yeah. What was the mistake you were not going to make this time around that you made the first time?
Overspending, for sure, and keeping track of the budget and everything that was coming in. Exactly.
Where did you get the money?
So the landlord was very giving with all that. So we actually ended up taking a large amount of the loan from him, and then from personal investments from friends and family.
What was it about you and Keith that made him buy in to your vision and to the two of you?
I think it was just that we were relatable.
Yeah.
We were everyday people who were ready just to look for that next step in our careers and how we can be involved with the community and share our love for food.
Did you guys communicate as far as, okay, you can give us this money, this is your building, but did you draw any lines as far as we're going to do this and you stay over here?
For the most part, he was just like, all right, this is your space.
Okay.
I'm going to give you what you guys need, within reason, of course, and just let me know your vision, and from there, tell me how I can get you to achieve that.
Okay.
So there was no real lines of, okay, I'm giving you all this money, but this is my part. Like, this is what I want to see you guys do.
Yeah. So any key elements of the story up to this point that we haven't touched on that is absolutely worth bringing to the conversation as far as opening the restaurant?
Yes. So I've heard a lot of horror stories with restaurateurs who go into business, for lack of better terms, with their landlords or things like that.
Yeah.
And this goes back to one of the conversations I was having about building that connection with the owners or things like that. The landlord is a key factor into your success of the business, and how they treat you up front will determine how they're going to treat you throughout the business relations. So really being able to understand and learn who you're getting into business with is a key important factor to knowing how you can judge your success and how they're willing to help and motivate and involve themselves within your success, because your success as a business is their success, you know?
Yeah. So what does that dialogue look like in setting this up right?
Getting to know them on a personal level,
Okay.
seeing where their head's at, seeing what their involvement's going to be, and just touching based on the difficult conversations of saying, if I'm at this point in 2 years when I know my lease is 3 years down the road, what does that look like for me? If I'm looking like I'm going to fail, what do things look like? Because, you know,
Yeah, what's the exit strategy?
yeah, exactly, 100%.
Yeah.
You have to have those conversations with your
Yeah.
partners, with your families, with the landlords, and just make sure.
Or like, what is the bottom line? Like,
Right.
when do we pull the plug?
Right.
What is that number? What does that look like?
Yeah.
So we don't go too far,
Of course.
to the point where we can't recover.
Right.
Right. As far as the overspending and budgeting, what were you doing to make sure that you weren't getting too crazy?
A lot of spreadsheets and making sure that I understood what my menu was going to be and what I needed to execute that menu.
Okay, so having a vision for the food first,
Yes.
reverse engineering.
Right, because that'll determine what equipment you need, what refrigeration, what stove tops, and everything.
So what was your vision for the food? Because we learned that when you were in Manchester, you were kind of really ambitious, right? Like you were trying to blow the socks off of New Hampshire. Was it that the same goal when you opened Greenleaf?
That was absolutely my same ambition.
Okay.
You know, it's hard for me to kind of take that step back and say, this is what I want my food to be, but I know that it's not going to be accepted. So I'd rather reverse it the other way and say, this is what my food is. Please accept it, and kind of take that leap with me.
Yeah.
And yeah, since opening, it's just been like, okay, continuously pushing the boundaries and putting things on the menu that we didn't really expect would sell.
So what were the first few months like going into like May, June?
Chaos, man.
Yeah.
Chaos, yes.
Well, was it anything that is it something that you think you missed, or is it just because you guys were so well received that it was just crazy?
I think it was the build up and the hype. I mean,
Yeah.
this restaurant was voted most anticipated opening, so that definitely helped. And we did a soft opening in April, the end of April, and that was a madhouse. It was horrible, you know, so stressful.
Who was at the soft opening?
It was just friends and family at that point. So
Good.
yeah, exactly. We needed that. But
There's
then,
a lesson.
Yeah, but then
Yeah.
2 days later, we did the real opening,
Yeah.
and it was just like we had hundreds of reservations coming through for the weeks, you know?
Yeah. Would you have done it? Would you have done a different opening knowing what you know today?
Yes.
What
I think
would
I
you
would
do
have
today?
taken the time to say, okay, friends and family, the soft opening didn't go over so smoothly, didn't go over so well. Let's take the hit for the next week, really develop the team, really develop what our procedures and practices are going to be, and kind of know that we need to take this step back to understand how we're going to push the vision moving forward.
Yeah. What development did the team need?
Time.
Yeah.
Time and better training, honestly. I mean, we just dove right in, and you're working within your own personal budget, and it's our money, of course. So needing to pay the staff for 2, 3, 4 weeks before actually any income coming in, that's a difficult pill to swallow.
Did you do that?
For 2 weeks beforehand, we did.
Okay. If you, knowing what you know today, if you could go back, perfect world,
Yep.
and train your staff the way you want to train them, what would that look like?
It would probably be 4 to 6 weeks of training.
Okay.
And budget accordingly. Maybe that means
I think that's the secret right there is know that you're going to need that.
Yes.
And when you're getting the loans, when you're asking people for money,
Include
like,
that.
Include it. And I think this is where people go wrong is they just don't have the foresight of all the things they're going to need.
Yep.
And their runway is too short, right? So they just end up losing. They just have to go.
Right.
Whether you're ready or not.
Yep.
So sorry to interrupt, but keep going.
Yeah, just 4 to 6 weeks of training. I mean, it would have been super helpful for the team to be able to gel and really understand how they can work together.
What about material? Did they have the tools and resources?
Yeah, all the tools were definitely here for the menu that we were ready to produce.
Yeah.
After that, of course, we saw how we wanted to evolve and move things forward. So when we started making an income, that's when we started to kind of just push some of the ordering forward and say, okay, we need this to be able to do this next step, this next evolution, how we can offer something more in terms of service.
Yeah. What about your relationship with Keith? Because you guys have a really strong relationship to this day. You're good friends. What was your relationship going into this? How were you guys dividing and conquering? What was your lane? What was his lane?
Right. So as you know, Keith and I are both chefs.
Yeah.
So that was a difficult conversation that we had to have in the forefront of saying there can't be two chefs.
Who's
in this.
steering the ship?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
literally, there can't be two chefs. In the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. And I definitely dove in and I was like, listen, I'm going to take this role. I'm going to lead the kitchen, and I want you to have that front of the house ownership mentality.
Yeah. How did he receive that?
He was hurt by it for sure.
Yeah.
And just knowing that he wanted to kind of see the food vision push forward, but we were both friendly in the sense of respecting and understanding each other's growths and ambitions. And he knew.
What did that look like? That understanding.
It was those deep conversations, just saying this is where we're at. We know that we need one person to man the front. We need one person to man the back. And this is going to be kind of where we draw the line. And it came down to just saying, okay, Chris, you know these are where your talents lie. I think you have the better capabilities to manage the back of the house more efficiently. I'll take the swing at the front, and we'll take things from there and grow this.
But you said you got that backwards, right? You're back of us, he was front.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. So going forward, as you guys had this, was there ever any tension thereafter around that?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough when you're going into business with a friend, of course, and there starts to become blurry lines, and you build these tensions between each other of not communicating or miscommunicating, and the work, you have the feeling, of course, if you're 50-50, the work needs to be divided evenly. And of course, there becomes those moments in time where you need to reflect and have those conversations and say, what are we doing? How can we do things differently? And it's almost like you're going through like a separation or a divorce at that time, where you need to have those forethought of conversations of saying, this is where we can be better. This is where we need to better communicate on, and how we can both continue to move this vision forward.
Okay. And just to like kind of get there. So I'll just say like Keith is no longer a partner of Greenleaf, but he's the reason why I'm here today, because he told me to come talk to you. So it's not like you guys have bad blood or anything like that. You just decided that it wasn't a good fit for each other.
Correct.
At what point did he depart? Was it 2020?
Yeah, so this is 2020.
So you guys had a solid year working together, growing this thing. I think in 2018, you guys were named best. Was it? I think you were like most anticipated restaurant.
Yeah, 2018 was the most
by
anticipated.
New Hampshire Magazine, which is, you know, big. Like other people might say like, oh, big deal in New Hampshire, but in New Hampshire that's a big deal. Like we take a lot of pride in that. And then 2019, you guys were best new restaurant. Right?
Best new restaurant. Yep.
And I think you guys had a really great opening. Like you guys are getting a lot of accolades. Like what else am I missing?
I think it's just the relationships that we were building with the community, and more so with the farms.
Okay.
I mean, that was our main focus of opening this place, is how we can kind of build that relationship with the community to the farmers, because the farmers are the ones that are providing us life, you know?
Yeah. So how were you developing those relationships? First, how were you developing community relationships? And then we'll get into farmer relationships.
Of course. Community relationships is really embracing those around, those who are going to be the ones that are the mainstay of this establishment and supporting us through thick and thin. So we wanted to have that outreach and say, okay, these are the events that are going out. How can I involve myself with these food events, whether it's through the charity events, through the New Hampshire Food Bank, where we go out and do these little tastings and really expose us to the community and let them know that this is Greenleaf, we are coming.
Okay, so basically just really being plugged into the events that are happening locally and asking, how can I be a part of these
100%,
events?
yeah.
And in what capacity were you being a part of them? Just cooking for them, like competing or whatever, or volunteering?
Yep, it was a little bit of both. So it was all, the majority of it is charity work and just putting up your time and food for these events that are raising money for specific charities.
Yeah.
That helps you expose yourself to the community, of course, because you have your name that's going out throughout the States, or I've done events in Martha's Vineyard on the Cape, and just pulling your outreach and stretching
You're just in
yourself.
Texas.
Yeah, I know.
Your reach is starting to get a little more
a little bigger.
Man. Yeah. But you got to be involved, right?
Yeah, 100%.
That's huge.
Yep.
And the other thing that I think is worth pulling from this, and we haven't talked about how you get involved with the farmers yet, but Keith and you, because you were his sous chef, right, for the farmers' dinner. Is that your official title?
No, I was the executive chef over there.
Okay,
he was just like running the company. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So you together were developing relationships, even going beyond that. I think that's worth bringing to the conversation, because you guys are essentially were just like pop-up machines, like doing these massive pop-ups. I mean, I can't even imagine how many emails that Keith collected and you collected during that time. Was that something that you guys were really being intentional about? Like, how can we get a massive following, and like how did doing the farmers' dinners set you guys up for success? We should probably nod our head to that a little bit, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So Keith was actually the one that was introducing me to all the farms when I was first opening up Cabernet, to take it kind of full circle. Okay. He really pushed the involvement of saying, okay, these are the farms that I've worked with in the past. This is what the crops that they're growing. And I think that's when I had that revelation of, okay, this is where New Hampshire dining is going. Everybody's leaning into the farm to table, but for Greenleaf specifically, I wanted to take that the step forward and kind of bring the table to the farm, which is what Keith kind of embodies in the farmer's dinner.
Yeah.
So kind of having that exploration with him and really taking the time to learn about the farmers, learn about the farms, their growing cycles, and really dedicate ourselves to wanting to have that deeper connection with them and understand who they are as people, and why they got into farming, what it is they love about food, and how we can share their stories through the food that we're producing on the farms that they're giving us the food from.
I love that. Yeah. So this was like 2 years, right? Or 3. I mean, it's still going to this day.
Yes.
They're still doing these dinners. But are you still a part of it?
I'm not a part of it, but I actually am doing a dinner with them in July.
Yeah, but like just think about the significance of that, the relationships you're building with these farms, taking the time, and I can speak firsthand the power of going to somebody else.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And going to sit in their space. And there's just something about that connectivity that relationship will last so much longer if it's less, I don't know, intimate. Right? So you're developing all these incredible relationships with all these future business partners, because that's what they are. Your farmers are your business partners.
That's right.
And beyond that, you're also going to all these different communities and getting your brand out there.
That's right.
Right? So were you guys did you have the foresight then to say, we need to retain these relationships and maintain these relationships? Did that conversation happen?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So what did that look like?
Part of the biggest following that we did have when opening Greenleaf was the Farmers Dinners clients or guests.
Yeah.
And just they were the most excited to see that there was a brick and mortar coming. They have a place that is not just a pop-up event. They can come as they please. You know? And building and relating the Farmers Dinner experience into a physical location and transporting these farms that we do work with, how we can bring all those farms together and share that experience as a dining with the community. I think that's what kind of sets us apart. Yeah.
And were you like, I don't know, were you intentionally collecting emails? Is that part of the strategy?
That's all part of marketing, man.
I mean, like, how many emails did you guys have opening this restaurant?
He had thousands.
Yeah.
You know, over the course of, I think the company was 8 years old at that time. So I think 8 years of email marketing and things, hosting all these pop-up events in different parts of the state, different parts of Massachusetts and Connecticut, Rhode Island, and things like that.
And that's why I love pop-ups, because you focus on doing one thing really well. For you guys, it was about the relationship with the farmer, right? Which is huge for branding. Focus on doing one thing really well. Share your passion and just start small,
right?
And just scale and just collect emails, maintain those relationships, manage those relationships. Awesome stuff. What to talk about now? Because I think it's worth kind of talking about the conversation where you and Keith decided to part, and what advice you have for people who might have to go through a business separation.
Right.
And how do you maintain the friendship thereafter and stuff like that? Like, what was that like?
Those are definitely hard, difficult, awkward conversations to have. Yeah. And I think it is really important to mention before going into a partnership, just make sure that you both understand that lawyers are critical in setting up a business, setting up your operating agreement, whether or not you think that you are the best of friends going into it.
You got to protect yourselves.
Yeah,
and don't look at it as trying to hurt the other person.
Yes.
Look at it as trying to protect your friend from
protect
yourself.
Your friend. Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah. And honestly, protecting the business too, because things do happen. And
is that something you guys did? Did you guys have lawyers get involved before?
Yes.
So how did that make your separation, your breakup, your business breakup? Because you guys are still friends.
Right.
How did that make things easier?
It made it easier because we knew that these things were all documented and it was all going by the state regulations and things that we needed to know in regards to like the legal aspect of the separations.
Yeah. So what were the key elements that your business operation had, or your business agreement had, that you would recommend other people making sure you have that in their agreement?
I think it's just, as we touch base on, an exit clause, exit strategy.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe you have to call your lawyer to answer this question.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Can I talk about this? I don't know.
Yeah.
No, definitely have an exit strategy for each of you and thinking what that looks like, what it looks like if one of your partners wants to leave, if that's a buyout, how much is that going to be of the buyout, if you're trying to sell your share of the company, and also just knowing that you have the comfortability of the law kind of guiding you and saying, okay, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do.
Yeah.
And just being open and honest with each other.
Yeah. Any other big lessons from like the first year of opening Greenleaf before we start talking about 2020, where you opened your second restaurant?
Right. Big lessons. Get the team involved. Really have them dedicate themselves to the brand and have them feel like it's a part of them.
Yeah.
They need to sell the business as you are.
Give me examples of how you're getting your team involved.
So I've always been big on kind of opening up and expressing where the business stands, what that means for us financially, and how we can get them more involved in understanding why it costs this much to do that, or why you need to be here at this time doing this, or if you cut this fish this way and just throw away the rest, what does that mean for the final cost?
Yeah.
So just training them and getting them involved with what it means to own the business, which is kind of where I took that full circle moment of coming from Viaud into the corporation and saying, okay, this is kind of where I wanted to take that next step forward. Why can't I provide that to the employees who kind of have that desire or want to learn more about it?
Got it. So making it educational, not just do this because I'm the boss and I said so, but do this because this is what happens when we do this.
Right.
Really educating people and growing people. How open are you with your books and the numbers?
To the extent of just understanding the basic of the day-to-day breakdown of this is how much we made, this is where this went, and how they can understand how much cost is actually involved with opening the doors.
Yeah. And what about solutions? Are they able to contribute to getting better? Or are you open to their opinion on
absolutely.
What does that look like?
So a lot of the operations, especially in the front of the house, is feedback from the employees and just saying how can we continue to push the service aspect forward? How can we be better employees? How can I be a better employer? And it's just by listening to them and understanding what their needs are. And of course, everything is within reason. And as long as the request is valid and I understand, I see what their kind of vision for it is moving forward. If it makes sense to me, it makes sense to the business, it makes sense to the smooth operations of the front of the house. Of course, I'm going to allow them that opportunity to learn and grow from that experience.
Yep.
If it fails, it fails. But at least they have that hand in knowing that this is what I contributed.
Yeah. So the big things I'm pulling from that is always be teaching and explaining and growing your team. Also, give them a voice. Let them contribute.
Yes.
Anything that I'm missing as far as what you do to kind of foster culture here and to support your team?
I think it's just producing that mentality of we're all the same house, this front of the house, back of the house.
Which is one cool thing about the space you have is that you are literally like in one open space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the big thing when we were designing this is that we wanted everyone to see that we are true to who we are back here. I mean, the back of the house, they're producing the food. You can see everything that's going on. You can see all the products that are being broken down, and you can see the farmers walk through the door and deliver us the food right at the kitchen counter and things like that. And wanting to kind of bridge that gap from the front of the house, back of the house is where we bring in the bartenders and say, okay, this is the product that we are getting locally from the farms. This is what's in season. How can you take some of our scraps, or how can we take some of your scraps and utilize that in the food or the drinks that we're using? Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Okay. So, going into 2020, it's March of 2020. You guys are open for almost a year at this point, right? March of 2020. Pandemic hits. This sector, I'm assuming you were full service, right?
Yes.
So this sector is the sector that got hit the hardest, right? Escalated fine dining to full dining services, right? So did you just shut down altogether? Like, how did you evolve? And I don't want to spend a lot of time here because I feel like there will never be another pandemic probably, but we'll have lived through it, so we'll know how to. This is the first time we had to live through it and adapt.
Right.
So what did you guys do? And I guess basically, just tell us real quick, what did you guys do without getting into the details, because I don't think it's worth it.
Sure thing. Yeah. So we actually closed down for just 2 days. So I think the biggest thing was having that opening conversation. I think this happened February or early March with the front of the house and saying, listen, guys, we see business isn't doing as well as it can be. And we all know of the news of the coronavirus spreading and everything. So we're just going to continue to monitor the situation. And then March 17 comes, boom, you guys have to close down. So we brought in the whole staff and said, listen, guys, this is the end of the line at this moment right now. Unfortunately, we have to furlough you guys until we can figure things out. So it was just myself, Keith, and 2 other employees that were just here running the operations. We shut down for 2 days just to kind of square everything away. Yeah. I had to order in all new takeout containers, new products, and figure out a whole new menu because the food that we were producing it's not suitable for takeout.
Okay.
So it was more so just like thinking in terms of, okay, what kind of comfort dishes can we produce that can get to the community for the family? And how can they share that experience at the table? What does that look like for the food that we're bringing in? What does that look like for the prep for just primarily myself in the kitchen? And how we can continue to just hopefully maintain the business throughout this pandemic. Yeah,
and it's still here today.
Yes.
So you guys were able to maintain.
Right.
But you also opened a restaurant. What? It was 2020 you opened the restaurant.
Yeah, that was August of 2020.
So, okay. Like, were these plans in place? Were things happening to make this work?
Yes. So with culture, that plan was kind of set in motion the end of 2019, and we had the plans to open up after we figured out our first New Year's at Greenleaf, and then things started to decline. As you know, the pandemic started to worsen in the States, and it was just like, okay, we need to put a hold on that project.
Yeah.
And then come March, it was just I think March 11th is when I started placing the orders for the equipment, because we said, okay, we're going through with it. And then March 17th, the closure happened. So within a week's time, I ordered probably 75% of the equipment over for culture, and then at that point everything shut down. So it's like, okay, I we screwed up.
Yeah. Well, at least you're in business and established beforehand. Like if you opened in February of 2020, you wouldn't have been able to get support from the government. So you had that timeline. You were open long enough where I'm sure you guys probably were able to get like disaster relief loans and things like this. Yes. Did that help? Would you have not be here today if you didn't have that support?
100%. And I'm very open and honest with the staff, and I say, like, listen, guys, like, we can't do what we need to do unless we get this PPP. We can't do what we need to do unless we get the RRF. And it's just like going through those motions and seeing and applying for all those things.
Did you have an accountant to be able to, or were you doing this all yourself?
Yes, accountant for sure.
Yeah, and that's huge too. To have somebody who knows exactly what to do, doesn't mess up paperwork, because that can delay the process and money can run out. Again, I don't want to get into details of this because hopefully we don't ever have to deal with that again. But what I am curious about is, did the pandemic influence the menu at Culture? Because now all of a sudden you're doing the perfect kind of food for a pandemic.
Right.
Or was it coincidence?
It's coincidence. I mean, we went into that knowing that this is going to be a sandwich shop, focus on artisan sandwiches with artisan bread, and the bread made in house, pastries, and everything, and how we can take the scraps from any of the products and turn that into soup. So it was always just like thinking of, okay, Culture is going to provide the bread for Greenleaf. Greenleaf's going to provide some of the scraps that we can utilize to eliminate waste through the soups or through some of the sandwiches and things like that.
Okay. So were you treating the businesses separate? So like if you had scraps, were you literally selling scraps to like be able to track and trace? Like
no. So it's just so if we're making a chicken stock over here, we have the chicken, and if there's meat still left on the bodies or the bones or anything, we'll pull that meat, and how can we turn that into a sandwich?
Okay.
And it's just having that forethought of saying, these are the scraps that we do have, how can we manipulate that into something that can be delicious?
Yeah.
It's not so we're like opening a place to take scraps.
So you opened Culture and you could only do pickup, right, at this point, because the businesses weren't open yet?
Actually.
Or delivery.
No, we were able to do. We did set up a couple of seats in there, but it was primarily just 90% of the business was just pick up.
50% capacity.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many things we can talk about. It's weird because like the environment in which you open Culture wasn't a standard environment.
Right.
So I don't know if it's worth. I don't know if that environment will ever exist again. Hopefully, it won't anytime soon. Mm-hmm. But what were the lessons you learned with Culture that are translatable, I guess?
So with Culture was a completely different opening experience than I had over at Greenleaf, because Greenleaf was a much larger scale restaurant, which had the general contractor, which was leading the whole project. Culture, I did probably 95% of the general contracting myself. I was the one that was leading the electricians, getting
much
on
smaller space. So what is this, like 1,800, 2,000 square feet?
Up here is just under 5,000 square feet.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, because it goes like way down to the back. Yeah.
How much square feet is Culture?
I want to say 1,900 square feet.
So a little bit more reasonable.
Yes,
space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was in charge of getting the electricians on board, the plumbers, and maintaining and getting their schedules on track to make sure that it wasn't going to get delayed for opening. And over there, of course, Keith and I had already gone through the separation, so there was no partnership. Yeah. So it was just me kind of putting my foot forward, saying, okay, there's all these rocks that are under the floor. I have a pickup truck. I'm going to go over there, scoop up thousands of pounds of rocks, and they're still actually dumped at my house right now because that's what needed to get done. They need sand. Sand costs $40 for them to deliver to Culture. I'm going to save that $40, spend it elsewhere. I'm going to go pick up the sand myself.
Yeah.
It's just thinking in terms of that, how I can manipulate and save funds over there, because I knew it was getting into a sticky situation. Yeah. I didn't know if it was going to succeed come opening.
Yeah. And how was it received?
Insane. So I didn't know.
I'm excited to go. I might grab it. Are you guys open right now?
Yeah, we are.
I'm getting a sandwich.
Please do. So I did not think it was going to get received the way that it did. And in planning for that, I had a large staff, and everybody was trained. And I think the blessing was being able to have some of the staff start at Greenleaf before Culture was open.
Yes.
So Greenleaf, we actually opened our brunch program, so that way we can have some of the staff start on board here. They can get used to some of the systems. They can start training, building the menus over there. And when Culture opened, they already had like 6 weeks with the company. Yeah. So they just dove right in. They when the kitchen was fully built, the health inspector came by. They were ready to start pulling food in. They transferred over there. And the first week was madness. I mean, the first week that we were open, we ran out of food all the days that we were open. So we ended up having to close early just because we couldn't keep up with the demand.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm distracted because I just did this costing and profit course with Rudy Mick. We hosted it, and he said, "Never say run out of food. You always sell out."
That's
sell
right.
out of food.
We sold out.
Run out.
We sold out.
But any big lessons as far as what you think? I mean, again, you had the reputation, you had the brand. You're doing food that was perfect for that time.
Right.
Takeout sandwiches, travel soup, all travel so good. What tools were you using to get the word out? How were you like what the technology side of things? Because you probably had to heavily lean on technology, probably more so than before COVID-19. So what was that process of learning all this technology for you?
I think the biggest tool that we had was the power behind Greenleaf. So what we ended up doing here was, before we knew Culture was going to open or had the plans to open Culture, we started offering Culture to go from Greenleaf. So it was kind of like a hybrid menu where you could order Culture sandwiches before Culture was even open, or you can get pasta or mashed potatoes and steak from Greenleaf. So we had that hybrid menu going, and people were starting to get the taste of what Culture is going to be on our bread, on our sandwiches, our soups, and things like that. So once the doors opened, they were like, I've had this 2 months ago, and I want it again. I want to come back. Now this is a physical location where I can start telling people where to go.
Nice. I love that. So we have to leave time because you have a new project starting right now, which is a pop-up.
Yes.
So what was going on in the back of your mind? Like, why did you start this pop-up? What's the intention with this pop-up?
Right. So the intention with this pop-up is bringing my family together to learn about Haitian cuisine. So the name of the pop-up brand is Ensemble, and that means together in Haitian Creole. And that focus was mainly just my siblings and I learning from my parents of their cooking styles, techniques that they've learned from their parents, their grandparents, and how we can kind of continue to honor our traditions, honor our food, honor our culture, and share those experiences with the community.
Yeah. And what I love about this, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm making assumptions right now. So if I'm wrong, please correct me. This isn't a cuisine that, even though it's your history, your family, this is what you grew up eating, you never really leaned into this cuisine until now. So it's still kind of a green, like, I don't know how to say it, but like, you're not an expert in Haitian cuisine at this point when you're just starting.
Right.
So when you started doing these pop-ups, was the intent just to kind of figure out the recipes and just to have an excuse to explore?
So the chef of the pop-up itself is actually my mom.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so she's the one that's behind the madhouse of the cooking, and I'm the one that's learning from her.
Okay.
So it's not so much I'm figuring out as I go with the recipes. It's like she's cooking and I'm standing hand in hand.
That's
next
even
to her.
better. So here's what the point I was gonna make is: you don't need to know. You don't have to have everything perfected.
Not at all.
The journey is inspiring.
That's right.
And you can show your work, and you can take people along that journey with you. And pop-ups, in my opinion, are the best vehicle to do that, because like most of what you're doing, because you don't have the brick and mortar, you're not doing it every day.
Right.
So a lot of the business is just telling the story.
Yep.
Right. And bringing people in digitally, and like with video, like, here we're working on this recipe that will be available on the pop-up on this day.
Yep.
And like, you can do that, and you can bring people in on the journey, and it's actually, like, I think, more powerful if you do that.
Of course.
Like, and that's why I love pop-ups, because people feel like they need to be perfect before doing anything, and they never start because they wait for things to be perfect. But it's the imperfections that make it perfect.
Exactly. You figure it out along the way.
Yeah. Was that intentional, or is this like, and plus, like, it's just efficient. It's efficient way to do shit.
Right.
When like, you're just like, well, told you I didn't know what I was doing.
Exactly.
Like we're figuring it out. And I think people are forgiving. But I don't want to put words into your mouth. So as I'm saying this, like, what's going through your mind?
So when we officially launched the brand and we had our first dinner, I think the first exploration that I did want to have into it was after January 1st of this year, is when we did Soup Jumu, which is like the soup of Haiti, and it's called Freedom Soup because on January 1st is the Independence Day. And how we celebrate Independence Day is by having Soup Jumu, because that's the first soup that we were able to kind of procure from our freedom from the French. So as part of culture, I wanted to offer that as a relative relation to the community and say, this is who I am as a chef. This is how I want to kind of welcome Haitian cuisine to you. And it was so well received that I was like, all right, let's see what happens if we host a dinner at the end of the month. So we actually held the first ensemble dinner over at Culture, which Culture is it's a sandwich and bakery shop. So there wasn't much set up over there. So we did a lot of the food production out of Greenleaf, transferred everything over to Culture. And when we first put the menu on sale, we sold out 130 dinners in the first 2 days.
Wow.
Yes. So that was the inspiring and motivation behind, okay, I think we have something here. And besides getting the food to the community, how can I continue to inspire my siblings to want to make the drive from Massachusetts once a month to learn about our food, our heritage?
Yeah. So are you doing the pop-up at Culture?
No. So ever since then, it was like, okay, we're pretty much doing all the food preparation at Greenleaf. We might as well just keep it at Greenleaf. So
okay.
It's all picked up at Greenleaf.
So what are some of the lessons we need to learn that you've learned the hard way as far as how to execute a successful pop-up?
It's having the business relations in place and knowing how to market yourself.
What business relations specifically are you talking about?
Well, in my sense, it's my own business relations with Ensemble and Greenleaf. Okay. And it's easy enough for me to say that I can just host these pop-ups whenever I feel.
You're asking yourself.
Exactly. But still knowing that it's a separate company, separate brand, and keeping it truly separate.
And respecting that.
100%.
Yeah.
So respecting the staff who is here for Greenleaf and knowing that the products that I'm bringing in needs to be separate, the products that I'm doing needs to be separate, and everything like that. And I think for other pop-ups coming in and being hosted at other restaurants, which I've done other pop-ups in other places, is just respecting the boundaries, respecting the environment, and knowing that you're in somebody else's house.
Yeah. So what are the boundaries?
Just learn the rules of the kitchen over there. Learn what you can touch, what you can use, what you need to bring in, and how you can respect the chefs, the cooks, the dishwashers, and what impact or imprint that you need to leave on that kitchen.
So assume nothing, ask questions.
100%.
Like, is it okay if I do this? And just kind of establish those boundaries.
Yes.
Awesome stuff. The other big part of that that you said was the marketing side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you properly market a pop-up?
You know your clientele. You know the style of food that you're hoping to put out. You have to have that outreach and say, okay, this is the food that I'm doing. Who's willing to listen? Who wants to share in that story, these experiences with me? Okay. And just kind of build that brand.
So
do
you literally like email your guests and say, hey, do you want to be a part of this?
Yeah. So a lot of us for Ensemble was emailing the guests from Greenleaf or using Greenleaf and Culture's platforms to push the marketing of Ensemble forward. And I think that's the big thing with other pop-ups coming into different brands is asking the business that you're going into if they will use their media platform to help promote your business or help promote your event that's coming through. Awesome
Stuff. I can't believe how fast time is going. We have 6 minutes left together officially, but we do want to leave time for a speed round too, so we have to wrap this up. Before I do wrap it up, I gotta ask you, what's the deal with Daywalker?
I don't know who signed you up for that question. So, all right. So this is back in 2012. I just started over at Viaud,
okay.
And we typically have black chef coats, black pants, black shoes, and everything, and blue aprons.
Okay.
So one day the linen company dropped off black aprons. So I was wearing all black, suited up, and they started calling me Blade. And one of the cooks was like, "Nah, Blade isn't the way to go." So then he said, "It's Daywalker." And then from that point on, I was never able to escape that name.
Okay, Keith made me ask. He's like, make sure you ask him about Daywalker.
Of course, yeah.
Awesome. And I do wrap up the free-flowing part of each conversation by asking, reminding people our mission here is to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. How have you transformed personally since 2012?
Wow, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's taken a long time for me to get to the place where I am, and I'm just now figuring out who I want to become. And it's really diving into my culture, my heritage, and seeing how I can lead, grow, and inspire the staff around and continue to provide them with the opportunities that I wish I had coming up.
We are back, and the first question I have for you is, what is your it factor, a habit, a trait, a characteristic you believe contributes or most contributes to your success?
I'm personable.
What is your biggest weakness?
Getting in my own head.
Yeah. How do you get out of your own head, or how do you recognize you're in your own head and get out of it once you're in it?
Taking time to take a step back, breathe, and relate to the task at hand.
Yeah. What is one question you ask or thing you look for when you're growing your team?
What do you like to do on your off time?
And what are you looking for?
Relating to the future employee.
What's your biggest challenge today?
Biggest challenge today, I would have to say structure and scheduling.
How are you overcoming that challenge?
getting the team involved and learning to trust in them and provide them with more opportunities.
So when you say structure and scheduling, are you talking literally like labor management, or what do you mean by structure?
By structuring and scheduling for myself.
Oh, okay.
And overextending myself and knowing that I'm pulling on too much tasks and responsibilities, and I need to learn that I have the staff involved that is trained.
So you're delegating more.
Delegating, yes.
Got it. Share one code of conduct or behavior you teach your team. So this is a core value, a way to be, a way to act.
Treat others with love and respect the same way you'd like to be treated.
The golden rule.
That's right.
What is one uncommon standard of service you teach your team? So this is something that's common within the four walls of your restaurant, or restaurants, I should say, to go above and beyond, but not common throughout the industry.
I would say that our guests are part of our family, and we learn to build and connect with them on a personable level.
Yes. What is one book that's a must read that makes us a better person or restaurant owner?
Yes, Chef by Marcus Samuelson.
Okay. And what's your biggest takeaway from that book?
Just leading and inspiring your team, be true to your culture and your heritage, and share your story.
I love it. And what is one thing you feel restaurateurs don't do well enough or often enough?
Relate to your staff.
How do you relate to your staff?
Being one-on-one and having those conversations, treating them as people, and knowing that they can relate to me and trust in the conversations that we do share.
Name one service you've hired or outsourced to do something better than you could ever do it on your own. This is accounting, PR, marketing.
Oh, yes.
Things like that, services like that.
Marketing, for sure.
And who is your marketer?
Ethos Enables Creative.
Okay. And what is it that they've done for you that you wouldn't be able to do if not for them?
So I brought on Ethos Enables a couple of months ago, and they have continued to push the boundary and push the marketing of the company and advertising forward, and have been able to redesign the whole website and really push the promotion.
Okay. And name that company one more time.
Ethos Enable.
Ethos and Able, like ABLE?
Yes.
Okay.
Ethos Enable Creative.
Got it. And we'll be sure to link to that in the show notes. What is one technology you've adopted within your business that's had a huge impact on efficiency, communication, profitability, anything along those lines?
All the Google document drives, like Google Sheets and all that stuff. It works.
That is huge.
Yep.
And I think probably underutilized. I mean,
100%.
you can have documents. There's no excuse anymore.
Right.
You can access everything.
Yeah, because I'm bouncing back and forth between the businesses and home and everything, so I want to make sure everything's where I need to be.
There's just so many reasons why. Like, it's like one of the lessons I learned as a commercial pilot is like you don't need to know the answer, but you need to know where to find it.
That's right.
And we all have these portals in our hands to get the answer instantly.
Yep.
So if you upload your operations agreements or any important documents or policies or whatever, and you can make that instantly accessible from a phone,
right?
Super valuable. Like, you don't need to go searching, you just can pull it up.
It's there.
Right? It's right there. There's no excuse. Okay, this is the last question. You ready for it? It's a doozy.
Ready.
Get ready. If you got the news you'd be leaving this world tomorrow, all the memories of you working your restaurants gone with your departure, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom that you could leave behind for the good of humanity and for your legacy, what would those 3 pieces of wisdom be?
Wow, that's a loaded one.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah. Family comes before everything.
1.
Treat others with love and respect.
2.
Live, love, and share your culture.
I love it, man. This has been a great time talking with you, learning your story, sharing, or just making an example of you. It's been a blast. We wrap up every chat by calling somebody out. That's how I found you. Keith Sarrison called you out. Who do you respect and admire in this industry? And if they were a guest on the show tomorrow and I published it, you'd be listening to that episode.
I think someone who I'd love to hear more about their story is my good bud, George Bezanson out in Earth's Harvest.
Okay, George, look out. I'm coming after you. I'd love to get you on the show. And how can we connect with you if we're interested in joining your team, or if we just want to check out your restaurants or follow you on social? What's the best way to connect?
The best way is definitely through social media platforms. You can find me at Chef Chris Viaud, or my businesses, Greenleaf Millford, Culture Millford, or Ensemble NH.
Oh my God, and I just realized that we never talked about how winning Top Chef recently, like real recent, like this past couple, like it was last fall, right? But that episode just aired recently, did it not?
Yes. Oh, so you're talking about winning one of the challenges.
One of the challenges.
Yeah, I didn't win the whole season. Yeah.
Okay, my bad. I thought for some reason, I saw something in my research, but how did that exposure help your business?
It was massive. I mean, ever since the news was announced, I think this was back in March, April of 2020. 2021, yeah, it was announced that I was competing on the show. Having that outreach and the support of the network behind Top Chef
Season
is
18.
Massive. Season
Right?
18, yeah.
Go check it out.
That's right.
He's there. Chris, thank you so much, man.
Of course, it was a pleasure, man.
The pleasure was mine, and there is no questioning. You are unstoppable.
That's right.
Cheers. We'll cut it there.